Like that whole. Yeah. Is that online? Like to get that drummer? Creating artist bio. I think he has a website, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Oh, this place been open. I think it's been building. Turn it up. How do you do this with it? So Nick, all you need over here is the clicker.
Okay. Can you get me some Post-its?
Post-its? Yeah. So there's a couple of people on the audio. You should be able to hear them if they have questions.
Okay.
This is all you need. Don't touch anything else, or the whole thing will explode. I think the wheels are falling off.
Lastly.
So, I'll be back with your post-its.
Thank you.
Even the current. We got one. both of them. But she couldn't find it.
Well, if you can't find it, I'll find it. Yeah, we could do that. I wanted to just reference. So you could print them out.
Yeah, this way, you know.
Code of conduct. Yeah, that would be fine.
So you're recording or you started, so just come say that.
Or maybe
We'll have
you
to-
say that.
It'll be more work for me to cut it out. As we're letting it fly.
I can't guarantee it won't come out. My son, he's been in 4 different schools, so he's been in Adventist school, Catholic school, and I keep thinking from the way he talks, he's really good at keeping his language in check at school. It's out of school, he lists it all out.
Code switching at its finest.
All right, well, we'll get started today. Thanks for coming today. Going to start with some introductions. Again, we'll keep it casual today, so if the temperature is not good, let me know. Feel free to get up and get water and coffee and donuts or whatever you need. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. My name is Nicole Lim. I'm the director here. I've been the director since 2007. Getting a little burnout. I heard that 10 years was the shelf life of the director, and I didn't feel burnout until someone told me that, and now I'm like, we've been doing youth programming here since 2010, and I came to the museum via law school, so I anticipated with the rest of my family to go into tribal law, and I focused a lot on law school on public interest law and juvenile justice, and worked in juvenile justice a little bit when I got out. But I started working at the museum while I was in law school, so I interned there for a long time. And as we took kids around and as I was learning about field trips and classrooms and things like that, I started to realize that a lot more could be accomplished through changing attitudes in the classroom, because by the time kids grew up and maybe took a seat in the courtroom, their biases and opinions were well fed by them. So I thought, if we really want justice in this world, very idealistic, but let's start when they're younger, let's start in the classroom. So I really wanted to focus on tribal youth. I grew up in Sonoma County in Petaluma, and my grandma was at Pinoleville, and visiting there, and having her have been kind of that, lived through that era of assimilation. Culture wasn't something she really wanted to talk about, and I knew that those things were somewhat painful for her to discuss, but there was also kind of a sense of some of the people that went through assimilation that maybe kids would be better off if they just assimilate. And so growing up, I felt a void here on, if you didn't have that connection, where do you go to get information? Where do you go to find out about your people? And so one of my biggest motivations for the museum was creating a place for kids to go And I think that with our youth programming, one of the most important parts of that is that we're able to have a very authentic discussion about how it impacts us and how we're impacted by the things that we see in the classroom or things that our friends say to us and how we combat that. So that's a major focus of our program. So throughout the day, you're going to learn a lot about the different projects that we work on and some of the strategies that we employ with our youth. But I did want to get just a sense of some of the work or maybe goals that you guys have. So if we could just go around and introduce and let me know if you're already working with youth or you have plans in the future, or if there's something you want to get out of the training, share that. Start with you.
My name is Adasha. Affiliated with I'm actually just going to school. In the school with a certificate in services social work, and Bonnie to run the services, this mentor program that going to start next week. I've started it. Try it out. Yeah, so it's working and it's working this in the college.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
That's kind of where my passion is and why I'm here today. Otherwise, I help everyone of all ages on their path. I manage our youth application department and we work with the board of 17 for our program. And I've been working with the community for about 15 years, so I'm always looking for like, new ideas, how better generation. More and more that are trying to figure out like how we can get more in the community. So it's an idea.
I'm Mayor Shan, and I am a school design coach, so I support students in network with about 60 in the U.S. and some others across the places, and we really support students to formation. So we quite a few students on our network, and so I'm just going to help schools. I'm working with the business, North Bay Med Academy. Winter Oaks alternative education, and trying to help them do a better job of supporting their needs. So I think the goal for me is just, unfortunately, no one from Winter Oaks or North Bay Med could be here today, so just sort of get as much information as I can to get to them about how they
Hi, my name's Elvis Santana. I'm from Ukiah. I'm enrolled in the Cloverdale tribe, but have a lot of. I'm a recent MSc college graduate, so I graduated with my MA in I'm aiming to start my BA come spring at Home State to continue in the field. I myself have been through social services, you know, I have foster care and all that. So I'm just really trying to learn, you know, the community like this, and as a mother also take care of myself and my children, but also see where I could be of help, you know, in my spaces, what I can bring to help my own tribe, to help the tribe where I live in, you know, private. I'm just really trying to better myself, you know, to break that cycle that I have to my whole family.
Thanks, and congrats on
Thank you.
all your accomplishments and awesome for the Humboldt State.
Thank you.
That's so many great Native faculty. All right, well, we'll get started, and don't get scared by how large my PowerPoint is. I know we only have one day, and I've actually done this in a 3-day training. I didn't cut out a lot because I think it's important that even if we skip over some sections, you have the resources to go back to and reflect on. And there is actually a manual that goes with it. And I was at a Sacramento training yesterday. We didn't get all the 15 worked out, but by the time you come back from lunch, we'll have them. All right, so what we've been focusing on in our youth programming, and this is our schedule for today, doing an overview of what we call creative youth development, talking specifically about the Tribal Youth Ambassadors project that we've done here at the museum, pulling out some of the best practices and what we feel are essential components for youth programs. And then in the afternoon after lunch, we'll talk about lessons learned, talk about outcomes and how we empower youth to achieve those outcomes, and then funding strategies. We're not going to do a lot on funding, but I'll give you some tips. Is there anyone's programs that are already funded through the tribe? Last time I taught this, everyone had their programs fully funded. And I was like, oh, nice to you. The rest of us are trying to find money under rocks and everything like that. But there's some funding trends that we need to discuss that will be helpful. So has anyone ever heard of the term creative youth development before? No? I'm not surprised. So we actually got an award. That's why we have Michelle Obama in the back room. In 2016, we got this award for creative youth development programs. And honestly, yeah, Michelle, she's back there. She's a hardcore. She's quite nice. We got an award, and we honestly didn't know that we were doing creative youth development. And so that's one of the interesting things about funding and youth programs is making sure that we're on trend. And trends can mean a lot. Trends can impact your program. Trends can impact the direction that your programs are going to go. Because that's where you're going to find support for this. And so creative youth development actually started in the 90s. And it's really just an umbrella term for arts and cultural programs that kids engage in. They can be in school, after school, weekends. It doesn't matter who does it. There's museums and libraries and, music programs, dance programs, acting programs. It's just a huge umbrella for all these different things. And we've been having, there's a field, so there's a website dedicated to creative youth development, and it's a growing field. And so it's been growing for a couple of decades. And I don't know if you remember in the news, during the early days of the Trump administration, when funding started to get cut and they were proposing to stop funding for the museum library service, and they were proposing to cut funding for art. There was a committee that was a presidential committee for the arts that resigned in unison, and they published a letter, and each paragraph of the letter started with, what do you call it, an anagram where it spells something? It said resist. And so the whole committee, and so this committee had been around for about 10 years. And they were made up of people from the arts industry, people from different politicians. There were some Kennedys on the committee. And they all said that the way that Trump presented himself wasn't in line with what they wanted for youth in our country. And so, as a form of protest, they resigned. And so, creative youth development field really promotes diversity, it promotes social justice, and it promotes empowering kids to change the circumstance of the community or environment that they're living in. And so it's a really wonderful field. I went to a meeting in Boston, and they brought creative youth development practitioners, even in different countries. There were people from Scotland. We had people from Cuba that came. And they were talking about the field, and so they split us up into all these different groups. And they said, if you want to go to funding, go to funding. You want to go to strategic planning, go there. So I ran over to the funding, because I'm always interested in funding. And we were sitting around the table, and they said, raise your hand if your budget's under $1 million. And I was like, and I looked around, and everybody else's hand was down. And so Boston funds their creative youth development programs, and all the people at the table all had budgets over $1 million. And I was like, should I move all our kids to Boston? What am I doing wrong here? But they really invest in that. And so, so it's a growing field, and I think it's important that it doesn't leave the station without us. That as tribal groups, we're identifying the work that we do along with the field. That way, we're also hopefully going to tap into those $1 million budgets as well. Yeah.
So who do you work with invest?
Invest.
Yeah, so it's like, sorry, we stopped. So invest like in the program, so they invest like the people do?
Yes.
That they're going to succeed.
Yes.
So they have access, that's right.
Very much so. And that's really the thinking behind creative youth development, is that while we're investing in youth, right, we're putting money towards it, right? Because what do we hear in our tribal communities? Youth are leaders of the future, right? Well, you go to the budget, how much money is going towards the kids, right? It's the same thing in the United States budget, right? We put more money into prisons than we do in schools. We don't invest in teachers, right? And so in the field, they see the investment as paying off because the kids are growing up to be successful, right? They're growing up with positive self-esteem. They're growing up feeling like they can contribute and make change, right? And so Boston, but I don't think it's any coincidence that they have, like 6 colleges within the city, they're forward thinking. So they're well funded. And it's nice to see. My daughter was with me, and she wanted to move to Boston. In fact, I think she might go to college there. She's still thinking about it. But in their creative youth development program, the kids do DJing, dance, art, film. Like, one program allows them to do anything that met their interest. And so that's pretty neat. So it's kind of our hashtag life goals, right? Let's be like creative youth development in Boston. So thinking about that, the definition of CYD and making sure that we're using and engaging in the terminology and in the field of practice, I think is really important. Because, everyone's doing it, right? We were recently applying for a grant, and it was an arts grant. And they said, well, you don't do art. We said, oh, basket weaving is not art. Film directing is not art, And so they didn't see culture as art, and we had to explain that to them, where it was pretty obvious to us that, of course, so we're still having to inform the other side, right? So again, behind the field, looking at children as our greatest asset. Their success depends on our ability to engage them in addressing issues and formulating solutions, and realizing that we've been practicing CYD probably long before it ever became a notion in the 90s, and that we can sustain our programs by moving into the field and participating as CYD partners. So I do recommend looking up the CYD website, the central website. I think it's called the National, I'll have the site somewhere in here. It's like a national platform, and there's lots of resources on there. So it's an umbrella. These are some of the characteristics of CYD programming, that we're providing safe spaces for children, right? That is asset-based. And that's really important because that's a very key thing in our programming, is that we're strengths-based. Okay? We can, when we address suicide or addiction or violence, we don't always have to present it in a way that says, hey, you're 2 times likely. You're 4 times as likely. Are those the rates? Yes. But that's not strength-based. That's not asset-based. And so with the youth, we want them to come, right? And if we're throwing the statistics at them, that's making them scared and running off the board. And so strength-based is really important because we're building their resiliency and we're reinforcing things that are positive. And so we'll talk about some of the ways that we do that. Standards, that they're maintaining standards. So some of the arts programs are, when we went to the award ceremony, there was a international music program, and they had a 4-kid quartet that played string instruments at the White House. The first time they ever played together was that day. They'd all been trained at different summer camps around the United States, and then they brought them together that day. So some of the arts programs really focus on artistic standards. I would say, for us, sure, that's important, but we're also looking at promoting cultural values and determining, how we have kids carry that forward into the future. So, social capital, positive relationships with their peers and their adults, and that's something we'll look at too, because we need to address that through historical trauma. And we focus a lot in our programs about racial bias, microaggression, and then lateral oppression that happens within our community. And understanding that is really important, because when you think you're doing something great and someone knocks you down, where does that come from? Why is that coming at me when I think I'm doing something that should be positive for everyone and no one seems to like it, right? Not letting that deter them from continuing their goals in the street. Youth voice. So this is really important, incorporating a youth voice. And in your materials, I put an article that's still in draft form. I got it from the CYD conference that I went to a few weeks ago in Denver. And it's called Working with Youth. And it talks about how we do that authentically, because it's very easy to tokenize it. We see it all the time. We've had funders who said, well, we'd like to provide you some funding, but we want to interview some of your youth. And if they could explain to us, like, a child that had a particularly hard time and is doing better because of your program, we'd like to interview someone like that. And they're like, no, thank you, but, we'll find funding somewhere else. That's tokenism, right? You're not going to have your awards brunch and parade our kids up on stage and pat yourself on the back about how your money was spent to change this young person's life. There's a lot that goes in, but that young person changes their own life. And so we have to consider some of those things. And some of those things are important for when we're formulating programs, because we can think that we know what the kids need or what maybe even what they want, and unless it's youth-led, they're not going to participate in a meaningful way, right? They might come for a stipend event, but they're not going to really take ownership of it. And so it's important to think about how we achieve things that are truly youth-led. So this is a really good article talking about some of the things we want to evaluate and think about. And then on the third page of it, it has a ladder of youth participation, which I was looking at and found helpful. Yesterday we were talking a bit about when we're doing youth programs and maybe providing gentle guidance, because sometimes things get out of hand and off track and things like that. So, where does gentle guidance cross the line of providing instruction and then it's not being youth-led? So things to really think about and incorporate. So we'll talk more about that too, but I wanted to make sure you follow that resource lesson. And social justice, and that's a key point, especially for youth in our communities. It's about achieving equality. It's about combating racism and discrimination and violence and colonialism and genocide and all of those things. And giving them a means to do it. I always I laugh because it's not really funny, but I have to laugh about it. So we have kids that come in, and I say, well, how are you experiencing racism? People saying things in your school, your teachers saying things, and often what I'm finding with the recent generation is that they don't often notice it. I say, no, we're not experiencing. And so then it made me worry that they were thinking that some of the racist activities were the status quo. And so they didn't really see them as racist. They just saw them as normalized. And so often when kids come in, we start saying, well, have you ever heard someone say this? Have you ever heard someone say that? And they'll go, oh, yeah. And it's almost like you turn on their radar. And then all of a sudden, they start to get really like, you believe my teacher said that the other day? I'm going to go in there and say something. And so I almost feel a little bad about it because I feel like when you turn on those lights, then they start seeing it and they're bombarded with it. Oh, no. But it's so important that it's not the status quo, that we don't just think that that's normal. So I got to fight against it. Sometimes I'm just turning on the light bulb. These are some components of CYD programs, combining arts making with life skills. And so that's something that we really try to do in our programs is combine culture with life skills and technological skills. And so when we do, say, a language project, we started, our very first project was language. We focused on teaching them how to document elders. Eventually, they help produce mobile apps. But that took, a good 7-8 years to accomplish. But over time, we were able to do that. So when we focus on culture, we always focus on another activity that builds kind of, a 21st century skill that we think will be useful. Talk about some of their GIS work too. Paying attention to the whole person, again, recognizing historical trauma, acknowledging it, talking about how we process it and how we address it. Recognizing that kids have a wide range of needs. One of the things that we really focus on is long-term relationships with the kids in our program. They come in our program, they finish a 10-week course or they finish a 5-week course, we still maintain a relationship with them. Our next project might not be something they're interested in, but the one after that might be. And so we just keep that door open and understand that we have to meet kids at their time and place, and we had some kids that were in the program really strongly committed, and then they got a car, right? We didn't see them for a while. So, or some kids with football season or things like that. So just making sure that when they come in, they understand you can go away and come back and go away. We're here for you, and you can reach out to us and participate. Share a common approach to gaining skills experience through inquiry and expression. And that's one of the things that will really go into kind of the community and strategic planning, especially if you're working on a youth program for a specific community, is pulling in all the stakeholders and kind of mapping out what that shared vision is in front and making sure that includes youth voices in a meaningful way. And then my favorite, engaging them to be agents of change. And that's, building the skills, but then giving them the power to make the ideas of how we move forward. So we were working on food sovereignty and some business development. Talk a little bit about how we designed the store and our youth helped support that. And we were having lunch one day and said, well, we could start working on like some products for the museum, doing some enterprise. So they created basket kits that they sell in the museum. They created some of the games, the Shoka. They created some kits for that, right? And so some different things that they were selling. And one of the kids said, what about an acorn protein bar? And yeah, acorn protein bar, that sounds really good. Yeah, why aren't they doing that? It was a lot harder to accomplish that than just, hey, acorn protein bar. And then we had to go back, okay, well, how do we get a recipe? How do we find acorn flour? So we found a Korean supplier that makes acorn flour, but now we're looking at, okay, well, how are we going to steward acorns so eventually we'll have to depend on a Korean supplier? All of these things. So it became a huge project that had many different side roads to it, but all out of one kid's idea. Take it and run with it. Sometimes it's not easy. Challenge will be like challenges. All right, so this gives you some background on some of the projects that we've done this year. So our mission at the museum is to tell California Indian history from a Native perspective and educate folks about not only historical events but contemporary lives, right? So that we're not always viewed as someone in the past. And through that, we focus everything on a Native perspective. We focus a lot on storytelling. We focus on having Native community members, professionals, be part of the civic dialogue, right? And typically, everybody else is giving their opinions about Natives but us, right? I sat on some conference calls on different topics, like, say, the mission, and we had the historian, the ethno, something or other, the archaeologist, everyone at the table, and not much representation of Native people, right? So where is our voice dialogue? And how can we have to fight to get that validated? And then using storytelling as our primary interpretation strategy because things in glass cases are pretty. We have them, but most of our stuff wants to be out of glass cases and not held in captivity. And what are people learning through things in glass cases, right? They learn from our stories. Our stories are personal. Our stories are our history, right? Our record. And so when someone reads a story versus here's a personal narrative, they find it much more difficult to be denial of of history, right? And say, oh, that wasn't that bad, that didn't happen. Because when they're hearing the personal narrative, they're now thinking about how it really impacted that individual. Some of the programming we have here, we do a lot of school tours. We have our exhibits. Our Ishi exhibit was the first exhibit that we built from the ground up. We work on language revitalization. We have a mission history website, and a lot of the stuff that we do is through multimedia. So that one has 7 videos on it. We also have a YouTube page, which is videos of things mostly the youth ambassadors have developed. So we really try to create teaching tools. We try to do teacher trainings. We have 2 coming up in August. We try to build resources for the classroom to change the climate, what's being presented in the classroom. So we focus on a number of different aspects. The tribal youth program is by far our favorite thing that we do, the most important thing that we do. It's why we come on Saturdays and Sundays and evenings so that we can spend time with them when they're not in school. We started in 2010. It serves kids from 9 to 24, so we had several 9-year-olds in 2010, and now we have several juniors, high school juniors. So next year, they're all going to go, right, after their senior year away to college, and we're going to have empty net syndrome. So we're trying to recruit more kids right now, so we have some continuity and some younger kids. So our Tribal Youth Ambassadors program has gone through different stages. And we started out, and it's not necessarily that if we move on to a new phase, we leave the old phase behind. We still do work in the old phase. But this is just kind of the order of which things have evolved at the time. We started in 2010 with language. And we had a 2-week summer camp. And we had kids here from 9 different tribes, about 4 or 5 different dialects. And we were like, oh no, how are we going to teach them language, right? So we just taught them multiple dialects. And throughout the camp, they learned documentation. They worked with elders. They did an animation of a book called The Little Acorn. And then they made videos where they animated it and spoke in different dialects, narrating the book. They produced a few videos, and it was a great experience. And so that kind of kicked off some of the language work that we were doing. And eventually we brought them back, and they learned a language program called Miramah, which is with a Aboriginal language center in Australia. And the folks from Miramah came out and did a 1-week class with the kids and taught them how to input things into Miramah. Eventually that led to more language resources that we created. We did a Tribal Youth Ambassadors to Theater program. I think it was the next summer. We spent a couple weeks. They learned storytelling, public speaking, and history. And then they did a performance at I think it was Wells Fargo then, now it's like Luther Burbank or something, right? The Center for the Arts down the road. Then we focused on Tribal Youth Ambassadors through technology. For 2 years, they learned GIS, which is the mapping program, computer mapping program. I'll show you some of the things they created then. That was really dedicated. The trainer flew out from Missouri, and the kids came on Saturdays and Sundays during the weekend. So I had to really appreciate my parents who got up and drove them down and got here by 8 o'clock in the morning, have them learn all day. And then our latest venture is Tribal Ambassadors through Business. And we've been working on this project for 4 years, next year, 5th year. And that project was focused on them developing the gift store in the museum. So they took online business classes, and then they wrote a business plan to open the gift store, and then we implemented that plan. And part of that program was also a Native Youth Employment Training Program. Christina might be here later. She can talk a little bit about how she does that. But that's a 10-week class where they learn life skills and information about retail sales industry, which is the fastest growing industry in Sonoma County. And then she helps and works with job placement and other resources. So, a lot of the kids that come through are still high school students, so we do focus a lot on college readiness because that's what their goal is. But kind of have to adapt based on the audience of the kids.
Nicole, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would it be correct that I'm looking at the mission of the museum, and it's almost like the tribal youth ambassadors, because it's youth-led, are sort of aligning themselves with paid staff to really meet the goals of the mission? I mean, a lot of the stuff that you talk about, the students are generating materials, and was that a conscious choice to have students supporting the mission?
And no. I think we figured out that fundamentally it works better that way. And I would say yes in the sense, and I dare to sound like Trump, like really vain, but I used to say, wow, I wish I could have an army of children. Like that could, understand the stuff, go out in the classroom and do these things, because I realized when my daughter was in 4th grade that she was learning the same things I learned. And so there had been no change in 25, 30 years, right? And so I know that there weren't that many of us trying to do the work, and I wanted there to be more. So I hope that the kids, that does sound really vain, but I hope that they go into fields where they're working on making that change, just so the change happens, because it's been so stagnant for so long.
So both is happening. They're getting, like, the creative youth, the creative youth development is happening through just the programs that you have. But they're also, the social justice aspect of it is that a lot of what they're creating is impacting your mission as a museum.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering about I'm thinking about that ladder, the student voice, student participation ladder. And it seems like that top rung is like the equity. Looking at the ladder, it's like equity between adults and youth. And so them being allowed to own equally sort of a lot of the successes of the museum, I guess. And I'm just wondering if that's part of it.
Yeah,
or if that would be the strategy, if students could walk away feeling like we're not just we're not just in a program at the museum, but we are participating in the success of the museum. We are the museum. We are.
It's a strategy, but it feels natural to me, and it probably is because it's cultural.
Got it. Okay.
We were always taken with our parents to wherever they went, to their meetings, to their, work. I mean, I traveled with my dad all over, and his stupid van was named the John Denver album, which I threw out the window somewhere in Montana. But we drove to reservations, and we went, to all these places. And so I think that's part of how we cultivate leadership, is that the kids are with us. And
so there's no big kids.
Yeah.
Got it.
And I that's a great advantage that we have as a community.
I think we don't think about it.
Right.
It happens, and that's how it works. But ask that question, you have to step back for a second.
Yes, thank you. That's helpful. Because the ways that dominant culture organizes itself, you have to really think your way into that. So you have to go against, which is the top down. You don't know anything, you're not capable of. So it's nice to hear that there's this inclusiveness based on what you do. Every young person is and you do.
I think it happens real naturally, but when you do have a system, it can kind of suppress that.
School, that's just coming from so.
Yeah.
But the fact that you realize that perspective of the being, for me anyway, it's just really listening to what you're saying, to really understand what that division you're talking about, right? It's a great, perspective to really look at that, get back to you guys.
So these are just some of the goals that we established for our kids in our programming early on. And, one of them just outright was build your college profile. I hear so many parents today, and, they think it's affirmative action or something's taken away from their kids, but they'll say, my kid's an athlete, they're A student, and they still can't get into college. And, honestly, it's because there's so many hundreds of other athletes and A students in those profiles. So how do you set yourself apart, right? Community service, engagement, maybe it's art, all of those things, but how do we build those profiles around these kids to launch them, right, into the future? And so one of the things that's really important for me was that they were building all those experiences and profiles that they could add to their college resume. Expanding hard and soft skills, we try to blend those things. So, if they're want to do an event, they have to think about what's going to be the theme of that event, but also how are they going to do the flyer, who are they going to outreach to, what's the catering going to cost, right? So they're doing all the nuts and bolts along with, the kind of thematic things that go along with that. So they're blending. Engaging them in cultural learning, that was really important to us. That kids that would come in, we would talk to them about, where are you from, who's your family, what's your identity, and, we've heard over and over, I don't feel Indian enough, or, I'm Native, but that's the side of my family that I'm not connected to, like those types of things. So wanting to create those learning spaces and experiences for them to explore their identity, because we have so much lateral oppression that we impose on each other about who's Indian and who isn't, right? Especially with political issues, disenrollment, and, blood quantum and family issues and all those things, giving kids a safe space to develop that, I think is really critical. So that was good. Providing mentorship, connecting them to people who are having success in the areas that they're interested in. Learning about community bonding was really important, and that might be a little bit to do with this community, because a lot of times they're the only one or two tribal youth in their school, or maybe there's a handful, but they weren't really connecting to other tribal youth populations, so that when they came here, they were doing family research and figuring out who was cousins and who wasn't, tracing things back. And so initially when we thought, how are we going to get them here at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, we thought, okay, we got to come up with some prizes, some stipends. For our first kind of cohort, they just came because they wanted to be together. And they said, if you guys want to do something, like take us to the Giants game, as a reward, or let's do things where we're all doing things at the same. That was pretty sweet result. Building their capacity to respond to racism and negative school experiences. This one gets me because I find a lot of kids that internalize their racism experiences. And I think I was like that too. I wasn't someone to be surprised that liked to talk much. Back when I was in college, if it required a oral presentation, I dropped it the second day of classes. Much rather write a paper and stand up in front of a group of people. I got over it eventually, but I wasn't someone who wanted to be really outspoken. And so if our kids are going to address racism, they have to address it where it's at, instead of walking away from it and saying, I wish I said this or that, because that starts to eat at you. And those are chips that build up on your shoulder, and instead of, this, they start to be like this, right? And it starts to go inside and weigh heavy on it. And so that was something that I really wanted to build into our program because I experienced that growing up. And I wanted to give them the skills to leave it on the field, right? Maybe we didn't change someone's mind, but I said what I had to say and I feel good about it as I walked away from it. And that was something that I think that the kids needed to build up. They needed to have, you know, here, some militant, like my Army, they need to have an arsenal of weapons, right, in their toolbox to be able to say, well, in fact, this is the truth on that. These are the facts on that. And, you know, they don't have the opportunity to learn that stuff, so they can come here and learn it, and eventually they'll feel confident to bring it forward and try to face racism where they find it. And then we talked, too, about self-care and how you don't have to fight that fight every day, right? It can be exhausting. I talk to them about, you know, I do this all day long, and then sometimes I go to a dinner party. My husband sits me next to someone who, you know, oh, you're native, and then they want to have, and I'm just like, I'm just trying to have dinner right now. I'm not trying to educate you. You know, sometimes you're too tired. So we talk about that too. And then just empowering them to find their own way, find their own path, to find their own identity, those types of things. I think are important to let them know that those are things they can do and can accomplish. As long as they're educating themselves, they have the freedom to explore those things. Yes.
How did you come up with these goals?
Some of it was trial and error. You know, I think some of them was doing the program and then reflecting on what we got out of it, what did we learn, what was the value of that. I think we had some initial ideas in the beginning, but the kids shaped them in different ways. So, you know, these ones were probably about 5 years into our programming. You know, now we're 10. There's probably some things we can add on to that.
And like thinking like from a program perspective, like are you handing around like a needs assessment survey, or like are you sitting around with them talking about it, or are you observing like what's your
doing all of that.
all of those things?
Yeah. I do the surveys, you know, because they're the evaluation tools, and sometimes they're very specific towards what we need to measure for a project and a funder. I find the sitting talking with them is really where you're getting the best feedback. But then too, watching them, you know, interact, because we also are dealing with a group that's been together for, 8 years. So, and we're starting to see some lateral oppression that we didn't see when they were 9, but now that they're 16, oh boy. And so, so sometimes the needs of the group is changing, you know, and we have to respond to that as it's changing. Yeah, just all of that. Unfortunately, you got to do whole kitchen things. So these are some examples of some of the things that they built. GIS is a great tool. In terms of the hard skills, kids can actually get a GIS certificate for free at SIPI, Southwestern Indian Polytechnic Technical Institute. And if you have a GIS certificate, you're already in the 6 figures for salary. So it's it's a good income, and it's not a 4-year degree; it's 2 years. They even have a summer program where you can fast track it. So it was a great skill for our kids. And GIS is again one of those occupations where it's happening all over the world. They have a annual conference for Esri right now going on in San Diego. 7,000 people come every year. And they're building mapping sets for all kinds of different purposes. Some people map breweries or wineries. Other people are, you know, mapping satellites, so it's just a huge wide range of things. And so we thought, what a wonderful technological tool that's going to take them into the future, but also a great opportunity to explore with them about what's appropriate when it comes to technology for our community. And so there's many great examples of inappropriate maps. If anyone's ever looked up the East Bay Hill People, group of archaeologists, anthropologists in the East Bay, they mapped all of the sacred sites in Northern California, put them on their website, and encourage people to go there and experience the site. Yeah. Fortunately, even Google, we've had discussions with Google, they can't stop them from doing that. So, we have a great opportunity to learn technology, but also a good opportunity to have these difficult discussions about if we're going to build technology, what's appropriate to put in these resources, not our sacred sites, right? But we could put tribal headquarters. We could put public data sets, like 100 California Indians you should know. This was some pictures from our GIS work. We took it outside. We mapped with botanist Digital Kenya. We mapped different native plants outside. So a lot of different ways that you can incorporate it.
What's GIS stand for again?
Geographic Information System. And also now people are using Google Maps. And our kids are going to do a Google Map working workshop. We went to Google for a day. We really wanted to go for lunch. That's what we were interested in. It did not disappoint. I mean, lunch at Google is pretty awesome. We went for the day, and we did a mapping workshop, and we talked about what kind of maps they wanted to produce. And we talked to them about, things that you shouldn't map. But one of the things with Google is Esri is like on your own laptop, and if you publish it, it becomes public. But Google Maps is a universal user agreement. And so when you're putting things in Google, you're giving them a universal license to use information. So it's not necessarily that you're keeping your data protected. There is a complicated, well, I guess not too complicated, for me it would be complicated, way to keep information private, but you have to make an effort to do that. So they decided what kind of data sets they wanted to build in Google. And I was really excited with where they went with this. One was to map, and this is some heavy work, all the massacres in California. But imagine what a powerful image on a map that would be. Another was to map where all of our local baskets are. And showing, we've got baskets in, what is it? Moscow, are they in Moscow? Russia somewhere, right? We've got baskets on the east coast. Everywhere I go, museum work, I encounter FOMO baskets. And that's a wonderful thing, but the baskets aren't in our community, contributing to the growth, cultural knowledge of our own needs. So let's map a basket about where all of our baskets are from. I thought that was really great. So we're going to be working on that on the 20th. We're going to Google San Francisco headquarters. This was a really strong, powerful map that the kids made tutorial videos, and they did the videos to teach other people how to do GIS. And then they partnered with Cal State San Marcos, and they mapped all of the mascots that are Native American mascots in the state of California, 146 of them, public schools. Yeah, and you can see like where the concentration is too, when you start getting here in the central area. So this became a very powerful map. In fact, we printed a giant size of it, and it went back to the governor's office and hung in there for a while. And I know there was a lot more into getting him to ban redskins, but I'm pretty sure that image probably stuck with him a little bit.
So essentially, this is something that you guys are the youth ambassadors are expanding it and going to. You mentioned San Francisco. also, so they're going to other places to get their ideas mapped, right? So this is essentially something, say, this is in Sonoma County, that Mendocino County could do, or Lake County could do, and kind of come together and do it, and kind of add to this.
Yes.
Okay.
And we definitely, all of the mapping folks, so Esri has its own education source. For the last 4 years, we were the only native program in that map gallery to present maps. A lot of 4-H kids, so they're really looking for more tribal youth programs getting engaged, and Google has been really great. In fact, they're looking for places to do workshops and training, so I can connect you with any of those resources. And then one of the things we've been working on here, I don't know if it's on. So this is an idea we haven't done yet, but we're working on, and it's to do a California Indian superhero map. And we want to partner with Eric Wilder because he does wonderful animation. And so we're having the kids map cultural and environmental activists, and then giving them superhero profiles, and creating maps and then comics. And so that's something we've been pursuing funding for, and we're still working on. So these were just some examples. My favorite, Isaac Boricez, I'm probably saying his last name wrong. He's a Loney, and he does education classes. I think he works for Yocha Davey. And so because he likes Star Wars, his superhero profile is a Loney 1 instead of Obi-Wan. And so the kids created a backstory for him. Melissa, she's a professor of education. She works for Wilton Rancheria. She's also a Loney. She has a obsession with Janet Jackson, and so and she loves purple. So we did her ultraviolet, and she has a backstory where she fell into a cave while she was listening to a Janet Jackson song and got her superhero powers through a violet.
Are these stories that you
Yeah, it's very cute. So we're hoping to do that, and then just not only highlight people who are doing the work, but do it in a fun way, and so incorporate art into it. I didn't put pictures in here, but a couple other maps we work on just to give you some ideas. We went into the documents and records section of the Library in Congress and pulled all the C. Hart Merriam agricultural surveys that were done in 1906, and those have place names in all of the different dialects of our language, and they have me walk and a little bit as well. And so we've been doing maps with traditional place names in our languages. And then we're also mapping healthy food resources, and I'll get to that when we talk about the food sovereignty. This is an example of the Pomo apps. They're on the iTunes store. They're free to download. There's 7 of them. There's 4 in Pomo and 2 in Chihuahua. They're not really dense in terms of content. We purposely made it so we only had about 70 words in each app. We didn't want to make it overwhelming. We did have a long discussion with our youth that technology is not a replacement for learning language from an elder or another human being. And so the purpose of our apps were just to introduce kids to language and get that yearn to learn going on. And then the unconscious digestion, which we see little kids, with iPads and learning language just quite naturally. Yes.
Because I'm a bit familiar with the language app. Are you guys ever gonna try to implement that for Android?
Yeah. So Miramar. I'll give you a little bit of backstory on that. Why it's taking so long.
Okay. But you guys are.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
And they told me last time I saw them that they're close to doing that, and that they will be released. So we wanted to do apps for a really long time, and we're asking app developers how much to create an app. And we would get anywhere from prices anywhere from $50,000 to $600,000, and often depended on whether or not we were affiliated with the gaming tribe. Because there's just a lot of discrepancy on what costs to develop it, right? If you're not someone on the technical side, not really sure about it. So when we met Miramar, they said that they could create apps for us for $2,500. So that's why we were able to do 6 of them. So we were really excited about that, and it became a partnership. But the technical side is all over in Australia, and so our capacity depends on their capacity to deliver it. So they had just focused on Apple when they released it. But for some reason, it's been taking a long time for Android, but we kind of just have to wait because we got them at such a great sales prices. So we were excited that we were able to do all that work on a shoestring language budget. This was another way that when we start thinking about funding, about some creativity in getting youth programming projects funded. So this is called the Indigenous Play for Active Life. We call it our IPAL. It was funded by the Super Bowl. This is surprising. I never thought I'd get Super Bowl funding. Not necessarily that I was trying, but when Super Bowl 50 came to San Francisco, they were funding these programs, but they were funding them through activity, healthy lifestyles, right? And so we thought, well, we want to do something cultural. How do we make it active? And so we created the iPal, where it has videos created by the youth, and they engage other kids in active play. So there's language videos where they're doing jumping jacks and counting knee walks. There's language videos where they're teaching kids animals but acting out the animals. There's storytelling, there's singing, all these different cultural activities. So this was housed at Children's Museum for several months, and it's mobile, so it can travel to different festivals. And it's solar powered too, which makes it really heavy. But hopefully we can get some lighter panels on that, so we're not all doing the work cosplaying or something.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
How many adults, paid staff, are supporting all of these very robust projects?
About 6.
Okay.
And then we do a lot of work with consultants. So our cultural and community consultants, we usually try to build in 5 to 10 in any project that we're doing. So it's, yeah.
And with your funding, I mean, maybe this isn't the funding part of the day, but do you feel like at this point your project, like this program is sustainable and like that you guys are getting enough support to be able to really see the best results? Do you have enough funding to pay people enough to live off of? Ish, within reason.
I would like more funding to give people raises.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Yeah.
And I know they're burned out. I know I'm burned out.
Yeah.
But I want them to, make it worth it. And sure, it's worth it working with kids, but it's also so expensive to live in the county. Think about buying a home and all of those things. So
this just seems like such an incredibly awesome program, and you hate to see it not continue because people get burned out.
yeah. Well, there's burnout. And then we'll talk a little bit more about funding. We've been very reliant on federal funding and successful for, 20 years?
Yeah.
But in this administration, things are very uncertain. And so we really had to switch towards private funding. But private funding takes time to develop relationships. So probably in about 5 years, we'll feel good about it.
Yeah.
But right now, being in transition, it's not super comfortable as a director about knowing what our future is. I know I have some multi-year funding, and I know it's good to a certain point.
Yeah.
But you need that multi-year funding to really feel confident and grow your staff. So it's always,
Yeah.
like a, what is that, a Rubik's Cube type of thing. So far, so good. Keep going. There's some prayer involved. And then this is our Travel Youth Ambassadors to Business. So the store, this was the empty space that the kids are standing in. And they help do the business plan and then do the design, research the artists that we're going to place in the store. One of the great things was we had them learn a lot about what goes into making the items so that they can talk to folks that come in the store to buy things and explain, why is this necklace $120? Well, all those things are cut by hand, and this is the time that it takes to do. So they learned a lot more about the traditions around a lot of things and practices in the store, which was great. Well, and we also started focusing on native foods in the store, which has launched our native food sovereignty work. So things always kind of fit hand in hand. And what we try to do is build on the successes of the last project. And then we also work a lot, I'll talk about enhancement funding. So if we have something that's funded, we'll look for maybe small Yeah, well, even the space itself, it was empty now. It's great. Yeah, we really wanted to focus on our local artists because they need attention. And we have online too. We got to work on that, but it's there. I'll be right back. I'm going to get Ben to come down. I know. Already get going.
I know, they probably think I'm chatting.
I didn't get your text call right now.
I sent it when I got here. We'll be training tomorrow, and I have to run the ABA tournament. I'm not there. Where'd you go? I don't know where it is.
Yeah, everything else is great.
Nikki, based on all these projects, there's one project.
Yeah, we were at a training that was nutrition related, and they were all working in school, and they were all kind of shocked by all the things that we do, and I don't realize that because it's kind of, these are all the things that we do. We're going to do this, we need to do this,
It just takes a lot of coordinating.
Yeah.
Oh, great. But having any successes we've had with our program, all
My OCD also.
You mentioned the cattle and that with the language, I believe how they all came out. Is that normally the one they have at?
No, it's different elsewhere.
So you usually go to other transactions.
Yeah,
Here.
a lot of our kids will go to other tribal programming too, so we try to. So it was talking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I didn't touch it.
the people on the audio portion can hear you and they can talk back.
Okay, but it was the conference call, asking us to
it's wrong.
press a button.
Okay.
It's like the operator.
It looks like you're still sharing screen. Oh, it says it's still recording. Alright. It says it's still recording and everything. You said people on online books. Weird little thing. She said she was traveling somewhere. She might have gotten where she was hung up and everything. Oh, there you go. And blame whoever else wants. I'll go log in to it online right now and see if I can show it.
Are you being broadcasted?
Yes. I don't think there's people on there.
Even tomorrow.
So like this program here that you got going on, do you have to live within that, in that area?
No, we have pictures from NACTF.com. We even had one that was dry every day of the week from Buffalo.
So you have your whole website.
Yeah, and we just have kids self-identify, so we just have kids that want to join self-identify, so we don't have any requirements. So the Native Youth Employment Training Program goes with the store in terms of programming. They're kind of symbiotic. And our goal is after next year to have trained 72 youth through the training. So we hold it 2 to 3 times a year. We had to take a break during the fire because we were closed for 2 weeks during the fire. We're on the edge of it here. But when we developed it, we went to other youth training, Native youth training curriculum, and we couldn't find one that we felt was relevant to our Native youth, so we ended up scrapping the existing ones that are out there and creating our own. And so even with that, we adapt it and change it with every group that comes in, just based on things we're learning and things that we're finding that are specific. It's been really great experience. I taught it for the first year, and now Christina teaches it. I get to come in and teach. But it's great to work with all the youth, and many of them become interns in the store afterwards. They stay and start working in the store. And she helps them with a number of different things that they need. So we try to make sure that the services are wraparound, that, if there's mental health needs, if there's school support, job placement, family issues, all of those things that we're trying to help the youth and address it. And they know that we're here, and they reach out to us even if we haven't seen them for a year. So it's a lot about relationships, which is really good. Last summer, the kids worked on a couple of different video projects. And one of them, and this is again kind of where our staffing needs our youth needs. So we were doing some teacher training, and we have STEM maker stations that the K through 12 kids come in and work on. When we developed the STEM maker stations, we really wanted to focus on having their native science or native history unit be out of the box, right? So typically, they come in the fall. A lot of kids call up here and say, if we come to the museum in November, can we stay and have pumpkin pie? And I'm like, I guess, but bring your own pumpkin pie, because we're not making pumpkin pie this year. But they try to kind of couch it into what they consider their Indian. And so we want to develop the stations where kids would be introduced to traditional ecological knowledge in places they didn't expect. So the pump drill station, which is back there, that's an engineering lesson. I forget how to say it, some pipe crafting triangle or some term. I left math long ago, so I didn't develop it. But kids have to, in order to put that together, it involves weight and length and all those things. So they explore engineering through pump drills. And they also learn about shell money, currency, and those things. Acorn Station is the science of bleaching tannins. And so they learn about acorn processing, traditional and modern methods. Hello, Jaden. This is my daughter, but also one of the travel youth ambassadors. We also have a basket robot station where they fashion robot bodies out of baskets, but then they attach motors and different things that make them move. And what's the fourth one? It is it's a miniature bark house, but that's done through a geometry lesson. So they build a miniature bark house, but they have to do geometry formulas in order to do it. So those are really great because they're learning about native innovation, but not in the context of where they traditionally get it, right? It's out of the box. And so we did a bunch of focus groups for teachers when we were developing that. And we said, we develop resources here. What is it going to take to get you to use them? And the teachers were very honest, and they said, we don't feel confident using the resources that you develop. And so we decided that a good approach, and we discussed it with them, would be the 7 essential understandings. And that's what Montana developed to address Indian education in their state. They're digestible, they're small, they're not overwhelming. So we had done a pamphlet on it, we had done a handout on it, and they said they're not confident teaching it. So we said, all right, so you can produce videos on it, and then you don't have to teach it, right? Because it doesn't come from you. And so the kids produced these 7 videos on essential understanding last summer. And then they also produced some videos on acorn education, 5 videos that go along with it. We have a cincc.info page, another website. That's our Mookadoo website where we share all the things that we're researching and doing. And you can access all the videos and public information on there. You can also access them on our YouTube page. And this summer, we are going to do some videos on native fire ecology to educate the public about the untamed wilderness that's out there fueling fires and how our tribal communities are engaged in recovery efforts and the roles of SHPOs and SHPOs in doing recovery. So we'll be doing that the next month or so. So our food sovereignty is threefold. We did a assessment project where we went out and tried to figure out, number one, if people felt food secure, if we have enough money to buy food, because we didn't feel like sovereignty mattered if we didn't have security. And number two, what are the barriers and challenges to getting traditional foods into our diet? And so we did a report. The kids are trained in going out and giving surveys, so they help the community outreach angle. People welcome a survey a lot easier from a youth. And someone like me is like, fill it out. No, I don't want another survey, right? Done too many surveys this year. And so we identified things like access to food, transmission of knowledge, climate change, competition, right? Abalone, when we could harvest abalone, we had some competitors in the water, right? The poachers are a good, 60-70% of the over-harvesting. So we did a report, we identified those things, and then we also worked on the acorn protein bar. And doing the acorn protein bar, we found out that the community, when we said, here, try the acorn protein bar, no thanks. I've had acorn, it's bitter, right? And so we were like, oh, we got to change acorn's bad reputation. It's not a bad rap. So we started doing the videos on educating people about the benefits of the nutritional value, the stewardship, the flour supply, right? We interviewed lots of different acorn folks, and some folks said, we don't sell acorn. We're not going to sell flour. Every time I sold flour, something bad happened, right? So there's some issues behind the sale. There's also issues behind the stewardship and harvesting. Stewardship this year with the fire, a lot of the acorns that we got just for processing or demo were bad. The kids were full of, bad things in them. We didn't use them. The different techniques that folks have in processing acorn. We had some folks who came down and said, oh, I dry my acorns for 7 years. We're like, that's not going to work in our business plan. We got to wait 7 years. It's going to be a long time. Others, 1 year, some months. So we just started collecting all of that information and then sharing it out and making videos to educate folks about it. So we're still in the process of learning. One of our goals is to do a memorandum of understanding. We're working with different folks around the county, like Sonoma Land Trust and different folks. But we want to find an orchard of acorn trees that we can steward year round, and at least get the experience. We may still use our flour from the Korean supplier for our bar, but we want to instill the skills in our kids on how to care for acorns. Yes.
I'm just curious of what's the availability like of elders for these youth to be able to talk to? I understand that, you guys, it's awesome, really, but to also be able to go to more own people as to who might know more, a little bit more about the top of things within our own people.
Sure.
What's that look like?
It's a small group. Sometimes we pull from ICE or Year Rock. We pull from other communities. And what we find is, sometimes they're in a place where they want to share, and later some of your own community comes forward, but that's trust building. Yeah. And that takes time. So, since then we found some local folks, but we just try to find where people want to share. We bring them in. We build the resources. And we start demonstrating that we're not trying to, we're not trying to appropriate and do the things that we're doing, and then over time people come forward and they get their own experience with us. So, so I'd say, there's a handful, but they're a good handful. You learn a lot from them. And places that we go, we meet other people. So even now, with the food sovereignty, we've been working a lot with native chefs So in order to develop this acorn recipe, we work with Christy Garcia, who's the Kickapoo chef. And she did chopped. So she was on that show Chopped. She's awesome. She said she's gonna stop making fried bread. Sad about it, but she's getting more into the traditional food movement. And then we work a lot with Vincent Medina and Luis Trevino, who's usually a Loney pop-up restaurant. And we work with Lois Luke from Sherwood, who does nutrition education. She taught the kids acorn crepes. So we're finding folks, because we have shared interests and the things that we're doing, and we try to be supportive of other folks' efforts as possible. And it's pretty celebratory. And who doesn't love food, right? So we've worked on the assessment, we've done the report, we work on the micro enterprise element, and now the kids are doing what's called a youth participatory action research project. And luckily, Christina, our youth development specialist, was experienced in this. It's a specific curriculum that's used to lead through a research project. And so the focus that our youth chose was to research how we integrate traditional foods into our modern diet. And so that has several components: working with chefs, surveys, doing focus groups with community members, developing recipes. We want to produce a recipe book. Also, we have a Pomo plate project where we look at the nutrients on the traditional Pomo plate and then try to identify things that are in the grocery store that are nutritional equivalents. And then listing out all of the traditional foods in our native language. So there's a lot of different components that we're doing in the research. We got a second year funding, and so we're going to continue it. I'm going to pass around this binder. I just got it yesterday. The curriculum for youth participatory action has a lot of suggestions on how you engage kids in doing work. They're not all applicable to our group. There's some of the things that we said, that's just a little bit too touchy-feely for our kids. They're not going to enjoy that. So some of the things we adapt over time. But there's some good information in here, so I'll pass it around for you guys. And I think you can get this online as well. All right, so I'm going to go through these quickly because they're not, they apply to creative youth development as a whole, and I want us to drill down a little bit to see what our priorities are for our tribal communities. So we're going to go through a little bit of activity with that, but I just wanted to review them. So as the field for a whole, these are the 5 things that they focus on.
Very quick question.
Sure.
To group, there's a couple different, the whole Google thing, the mapping, the people, and this is like off Rancheria location, right? So what's the turnout like when people take this home? Is there a lot of family engagement and stuff, or community, like my areas up there in the Big Valley, a lot of stuff happening, but when I don't know what happens. By the time they get home, it seems like nothing happens. Either the family doesn't want to engage with their learning, or the kids don't. There's some kind of mix-up to when they camping. They don't really want. The reception. So it's like with this children, with this what's it called? CY. Yeah. So is it like a family day too? You guys bring it in and incorporate the parents, because nowadays the kids, like you're saying, kids to learn more younger, but now they're smarter than their parents almost, and the whole the oppression, right? It's not even intentional sometimes, but it's all the different things that are like that are getting out there. That's not like traditionally learn what your family learned and you kind of stay with this thing. But now they're offering all these new, just like, you come home and it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this. It's like, you are. Where'd you get that? What, really? And then it's like, it's not to bring anything home, it's to go make their own life, you know? And I see a lot of that changing and stuff too, but that's I was just wondering, how does that work? I've heard nothing about parent involvement, just what we're teaching the kids, and
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, just like I said, they get a card and it's like, I don't want this anymore. I was wondering because of that, because there's going to intermingle, like, hey, your mom, I'm doing this, or could you come to class and stay, you know, or my brother, older brother, so show you what I'm learning. Maybe you guys like this as well.
So,
is this part of the program, or is it?
I think the car thing is just kind of a developmental stage thing, honestly, because and they're just out and doing other stuff, and so it's hard to harness them back in once you've got that kind of level of freedom. But with the parents, I'm glad that you brought that up. Parent buy-in is very important to a success of a program. And we have a lot of parents that will come and say, wow, I wish they had this for me when I was a kid. And we have a lot of parents that come and say, can I stay? And yes, of course you can stay. One of the ways that we address it is that we always, when we have a project, we have a community and a parent day. And we highlight all the work that the kids did and they present it to them. And so, you know, when we first did our first theater project, the kids produced a video called We Are Indian, We Are Proud. And all the parents came and everyone was crying when they saw that video. Very emotional, very powerful. You know, other parents, like with the GIS, what is GIS? You know, I'm not going to learn it. I don't really want to learn GIS. I have trouble with my phone, right? I don't want to learn, like, mapping software. But the parents realize the value that, you know, this is a skill that the kids can have and build upon and might be great for their future. And so, you know, they were driving them an hour at 8 in the morning, things like that. So parent buy-in is really important. It's really good that when you're doing outreach and recruitment that you include the parents, because the parents are going to be the ones that get them there, right? You know, sometimes I know some of my kids come in the program because, hey, that's free daycare, right? And so, you know, they said, oh, well, they'll call and say, I know it's for 13, but can we bring them the 8-year-old? I'll say, yeah, you know, because I want kids in the chair. And, you know, and I don't. That's why we're very strengths-based. I don't focus a lot on some of the activities that they might be doing that they shouldn't be doing, because I don't want them ever to feel like they're not welcome here because of things. And so, you know.
Are you great in, was it Lincoln Springs, or you're just a private place, museum, to the city?
Yeah,
city,
we're independent, nonprofit. Our board is made up of individuals that represent tribes throughout the state, south to north. But we're not affiliated with any single tribe. And that gives us some freedom. And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, no, you got to try to go take over.
Yeah, I mean, you have more limitations when it's tribally funded, because you're going to have now a council that's going to have some input on it. So that's going to take a lot more convincing them about what's important. But I have a little bit more luxury. Yes.
So, like, the participation in your programs you have are just the kids wanting to kind of participate?
Yes.
Okay. Because, like, I see a lot of that, like, when there are different activities for kids to go participate in special groups, youth lists, things like that. I see a lot of them being academic-based, so that the kids have to make good grades. And not all the kids make the grades. So, like, I know, like, within even our tribe sometimes, like, when there's a group, they're like, oh, well, you want to go and do this, but your grades aren't that good, so it's going through the education department, so, you know, your grades need to be this. And it's like, no, the kids might have an interest in that, but so it's like, that's nice to hear that it's not academic. I know they don't have to have certain, you know, GPAs to come and participate, so it's like,
Yeah. It's in a different place. You know, it shouldn't be a reward.
yeah. So, you know, that could be one thing that gets them to that too.
sorry. You know, a lot of dance guys, the Aztecs, and see the there's like Chinese people. You ever get people come in there, they have their own culture and say, I want to learn more about their culture, but I have a culture. Or is this just, you have to be native, you have to be from the tribe, program?
They can self-identify.
Or something, it's a whole tribe, or it has to be.
No, well, we have had friends and cousins that came to the program and participated because they wanted to, but they were friends and cousins. And really, my philosophy is, I want them here rather than somewhere else. So if they want to bring friends and cousins and they're not disruptive, that's fine. Kids can self-identify. I have had a few questions about some of the kids that self-identify, but that's okay. Like, I'd rather them be here. I don't require any documentation or proof. I'm not, that gets into, very sad. I had a child that was here and was filling out a survey and it said tribal affiliation. And she raised her hand and I went over and she said, what do I put here? My family was disenrolled. And so she didn't even think she could put homo as her tribal affiliation. So that's why we don't get involved in the nuances of tribal identity that way. But do we outreach to non-Indians? No, that's not the purpose of the program. It's for tribal communities. We do have some programs that are open to the public and some that are specific to the community. And we do have folks occasionally, especially if it's a cultural class, that say we want to be part of that and say, sorry, maybe come to a different class in the future. Sometimes people get upset, but these programs are for a tribal community and they have to be conducted in a space that's safe for them. And that's just the way it is. We've had enough appropriation and we can set some boundaries as to what people can and can't participate. Sometimes they have to do that.
Yeah, a lot of colleges are getting bigger programs and stuff, so it's like really nice to show the artwork stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we like to showcase different artwork. And we like to showcase other tribes. It doesn't have to be from California. But again, our main focus is California culture because we don't feel people have been educated enough.
I just add, so one of the coolest things that happened for us is I was at the school in Windsor, and he wasn't graduating, and I don't think he's ever been encouraged to do anything culturally based for credit. Maybe probably discouraged more than encouraged. And so I just asked Nicole and Christina to come to the school and meet with the student and support him because he did want to do a basket project. And to have that resource, as the museum, to have a resource with students now that are native to Indigenous, he didn't even know she was here. He showed up on his own and did all the research himself that day on basket and went back to school and taught some other students how to do it. And I think having that Christina and Nikki there to talk to him and encourage him, and his mom was there too, saying like support you in that learning and he'll get credit for it. So it's kind of like credit. So kind of cool, like tribally unaffiliated, like that people going to college. In our community,
Yeah, it's much more, not just having the negative experiences in school as throughout, from kindergarten on up, but then also coming into high school and really realizing how is this developing in my life. And then learning history and their version of it, and realizing that's not true. So can I believe what everybody's telling me? So that's really important that they find something that they connect to. Whether it's hands-on or language projects. We had another one that did a language project. Then it became meaningful to them, and they thought through. So I think that's important to set them up for success.
And it builds confidence in teachers too, like you were saying before. A lot of teachers are like, I don't feel confident supporting students. I don't know anything. I don't know any people within 60 people. So by connecting them here and actually, like you guys came to the school more than once, now the teachers are feeling more confident about the students because they know they have those resources that have, it's not just grabbing the internet. How you make a basket, they can discern what to do, cultural research appropriate for conference. Really, I think, encouraging.
And I always tell parties, if you want me to go into your school, if you're having issues with the teacher, several of Jaden's teachers in the past are scared of me. There was one actually who locked the door and took the blinds and something. And I try not to be scary, but just again, you poke the bear, that's my historical trauma. I can't control how angry I get, but because you did something to my kid that I also experienced, now I'm double angry. I try to calm it down. But they need those advocates in the classroom. They need somebody to go in and fight for them. And sometimes it's just making the teacher realize that didn't really even know they were doing something wrong. Other times it is taking on motivation, something bigger. But they need the support.
Well, you see it all the time too, on TV, look how many years, for the black people, right? But now the Hispanic, they got Spanish classes, well, you learn how to speak English, it's you can't tell me that. You can't take away my heritage and my culture. So now they have to have two people. And neighbors too, we want to go to school now. Yeah. And we're going through all this, we're going through the generational trauma, how it used to be. It's not like that no more. Can't treat us like that no more. The people they're doing it still, but they don't even know it. Things are surfacing up, saying, I'm at school. My parents never went to school, so I don't even know why it's important, but I'm pretty good at it, right? And all of a sudden, what do I do with that feeling? I think it can be a positive feeling. And then you start developing some other big your tribe or your people, whatever. It's oh, this guy. They're delicious.
All right, so these are just the general field, their strategic priorities, and I think that some of them align with things that we're looking at, but what I do want to start thinking about are what are the strategic priorities maybe for our own communities, or for our youth, for our state, whatever that is. So this one is position youth development to be a catalyst for change, right? So put them in the position to collaborate across other fields and ensure that their academic, professional, and personal success. So, and I think that's one of the good things with creative youth development is it's really looking at the whole person, right? And why is art, we can call it culture is vital to our identity, right? And our confidence too. Art is an expression, right? We're processing trauma. Art allows us to do that in a way sometimes that isn't verbal, right? And so we need that type of help. So these things are important to look at. Establish young people and their youth development programs as key leaders in discovering and developing opportunities to improve livability, economic viability for their youth. So really empowering young people to chart the course, right? Hey, young people are the leaders of the future. They can be the leaders of today. We don't have to, kind of diminish them as having to develop into the future. right? That was a lot what that article was talking about, giving them the power to do that today. We probably wouldn't have phones and these types of things if we suppress young people's creativity. Develop and deepen opportunities for them to create a just and more equitable society. And that's really important because if they don't like what they're seeing but don't feel they can change it, that leads into hopelessness, despondency, and depression. So we want to give them the tools and make them feel powerful and make them change. There's a lot of, I don't wake up in the morning and like what I see on CNN, but I know that change is going to come, right? Otherwise, I would have moved to Canada or, Mexico or some other state that I threatened to move to in the last election. Right now, I have some hope, right? I feel like change. I see people in the streets, like-minded individuals that want similar things, and I don't feel hopeless. So, and as a young person, idealism is really strong, right? The world hasn't necessarily jaded you yet, right? Because you're not as sarcastic or pessimistic about things. And so it's really important as a young person that you feel empowered to make a change because you're looking towards the future, right? And then document and communicate the impact. And this is something that we probably do for funding so that their funders know that these things are important and they feel good. But we should also think more widely about documenting and communicating it so that people understand culture is art, right? And all these arts organizations that have multi-million dollars should be funding culture as equally as they're funding art programs, right? They're one and the same. So we have to give it a voice to make people recognize. And that's something that's hard for us because we're still the 1%, right? And other people's voices sometimes are louder than ours. So we gotta get a bullhorn. Support and advocate for a strong creative youth development sector, business models, revenue sources, partnerships, funding. Partnerships are important so that we don't feel we're competing with one another. And I think that's one of the problems that we find in our small Native communities. Especially when we were doing language work, people said, well, this tribe is doing that language work. Like, well, we're doing language work. It's not the same language work. They don't have to be competitive. All resources are good resources. We should all be trying to do as much as we can. But we feel that way because there's limited resources out there, right? There's like 2 or 3 funders, and we're all trying to go for the same pot of funds. But collaboration will kind of lessen that degree of competition, and funders love collaboration, although it does spread things wider. Okay, so I wanted to get some feedback on a yellow post-it pad. So I wanted to brainstorm a little bit about what we think some priorities should be for tribal youth in terms of strategic priorities. And so what we could do is I'm going to pass out some Post-its and just write some ideas down on what you think your ideal youth program, what would be some components of it, and then what's reality, what are things that are really available to you. So this would be like, if I had everything I needed, this is how I would create it. And this would be like, this is what the status is today. This is what's available. So we're just gonna pass out some Post-its and then we'll share them. Here's idea. Did you say you know more Post-its? Does everybody have pens? Oh no. I have to write small. Can you grab some more here? Age or any glasses to read small print. I'm like, oh no. All right. Now let's do eliminate. Okay. To write 3 ideal elements of your ideal program and 3.
Okay. Sure.
Beauty.
Okay. I wasn't sure. It was a small print.
Okay, after you're posted, you just put them up on the whiteboard.
I don't know if I could.
Okay.
So just we do a program. Areas of focus type of programs like this. That's what we did already graduation. Within the tribe, people appears that positive influences, helping people in that tribe. And then other people be behind them, teaching culture, focusing on like this art, strictly into integrated art, focused on trying to make a career within tribal community, services, whether it be law, whether it be construction company, resources around the world, all these agencies. But there's I'm from a family that took a week of family that was agreed to have me, my uncle, all my family, and I did another uncle from another family that was not related to another and then so we come to community together, and then we do taking a trip. Some of the people that are trying to sell me that.
Yeah.
So put it up there.
Yeah.
And then right here.
That's in real.
That's real.
Okay.
That's probably the first that I did. I think that'll produce everything level.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Oh, we're writing them up there?
Oh, no, you can just stick them on there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Look at your handwriting.
Is there a roof to this place? You guys got a roof?
It's not leaking right now, is it?
No telescope or nothing up there? There's sweat lodge up on the roof. That'd be
We have an arbor in the back.
stylish. Yeah, you guys ever run the sweat down here? There's no other.
No, it does not.
They do a ceremony of sweat with a guy named Martin Martinez. He does one at this recovery center and stuff. He's a human service person for Collegeville.
Oh, okay.
Not Collegeville, Redwood Valley. You ever know Martin?
I think so.
You ever met Martin? They work in prisons and institutions. After go to deliver message, do the ceremony and cultural activities. It's pretty cool time. A lot of well riding stuff. You have ever had well riding here today?
We haven't done that now. They just do Sonoma County Indian Health.
Yeah,
Partner with them on something.
yeah. It's pretty nice backbone. I've noticed in the last couple of years for a lot of communities.
Yeah, they have a lot of motivational speakers.
Yeah. And it emphasizes that, the better way of living.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, this or that, no, that is a better way of living. Yeah.
Oh, you scrapped it?
I reread the question. I just kind of whined instead of said what we do actually have.
So you guys in partnership with the Hudson place at the college, the Santa Rosa College?
Nope.
Get them do nothing together?
No.
Both museums though, right? They got some museums there too. I haven't been
They
there
have
for
a
2 years.
museum and then they have the Alice back in colleges.
Oh, that's
They work really closely with Pepperwood, which is like an outdoor education center, and we do some work out there. But that was before the fire. I haven't been out there.
Have you seen the Hudson Museum too?
Great.
Yeah, the good Hudson.
Yeah, they have a new director too, I heard.
Oh, they do, yeah.
Yeah.
They do an annual thing that runs through the, I don't know, they have workshops, I know, in there too, that they would teach basketball to them, or do some other type of show.
Yeah. Yeah, we've done a couple of programs up there for our language work. Okay, let's see what we have. So for ideal, we would be teaching kids mentoring through leadership, cultural education and career training, family and community, so they could be going out and doing different cultural exchanges with other tribes, as you were talking about.
Okay, well, the mentor thing is like having an example of the people that are doing really good, you know, or tribal leaders, whatever, and picking up people like a big brother, big sister thing. We got this program now, but it's through CalWorks. It's not actual tribal members come and say, hey, you know, a lot of people, they're kind of upset with the program. But it's a good program. It's a big brother, big sister program, but they're learning from people that aren't, there's no volunteers, or they're not even reaching out to tribal members to come in and be an example. Hey, you know, I've done this and this and whatever we're making. Now, that would be the first one. The educational and career stuff is promoting them with all the financial aid and everything, and resources and referrals, and making it native, specific native, like you guys have that art in there with the comics, also the Indian guy or the hero guy thing. I think that's a cool program. And that family thing, I was talking about having like talk circles, whether like, you know, you get this lady, she's influential with her family, and so she got her group. Instead of saying, here, I'm here, come here, and then, you know, the kids, they go to another family, their parents, stuff. So you get to deal with your own group, and get to mingle, sit down like a clan building, and then get this other group and get to introduce yourselves. Oh, this is this family, this is the uncle, this is that. Instead of saying, hey, what's up, uncle? It's like, I'm not your uncle. But no, that's how we say it. It's like, okay, but, you know, I mean, it's just different, you know, but that's why I think that, that way you get the realization of changing in the world, right? Well, blood is blood, just like the brother thing in the Bible, it's be your neighbor, you know, like that, I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, so that was my thing, that emphasizing the whole adapting and persevering to change, but when we can, focus on definitely the intertribal connection on how it's staying home. So yeah. So you got
I think that's really important, and I see it's backed up by a few other post-its. But I think that's really key, and a couple of things, you know, because in that talking circle, you've got that safe space, right, which is really key in creative youth development, safe space for expression, right? But you're also building community and family, so we're overcoming some of those lateral oppression things we see start to come on. So you're building that bond, and then it's also, you know, you said here, a place to pray, a place to learn cultural practices in a safe space, and that's something we really have to focus on too, because when we lose those things, you know, sometimes those are the last things to leave communities, but when they are gone, our communities are really in jeopardy at that point. I was doing, I used to do public relations work, and I was working with a tribe on the East Coast, and I had to fly back there once a month to the East Coast, and they wanted to do a campaign called Unity Through Community, and so they wanted to build a community shared identity around all the members that lived in their tribe, and one of the reasons was because they had brought people back into the tribe that were different places, living different places. And they were talking about one of the things in their campaign was that they didn't know the ways to bury people anymore. And their tribe had been decimated in the 1600s. But I was thinking about that when I was there, about how fortunate we are that we still have a lot of that information, and what a struggle it would be to be a tribe and lose some of those practices, which are really, you know, things that are vital to your community and identity. Let's see what else we have. The youth group who work on a project using cattle to create revenue, microenterprise. I like that a lot. That's really good because the agricultural industry is so huge, right? And the ag industry owns most of our counties, right? Here it's wine. I think up in Lake County there's more cattle and timber. We did a project with a research student from Berkeley, and her focus was just to research how the wine industry impacted our native food systems. And when she did research in the other counties, she says that some of their issues were more ag-driven in terms of cattle and forestry. I was working with some of the county fairs, and they have a lot of 4-H groups. And the 4-H group didn't appear to me to be very diverse. And I thought about that, and I was like, well, you have to own land to raise animals, and we don't have a lot of minority people who own land in this county because it's so expensive. You know, we definitely didn't have a lot of Native youth representation in there. So I think that getting kids more involved in agriculture is really important. There's a youth project in Torres Martinez in Southern California where they're just focusing on training youth in ag industry because that's such a big part of their community, but they don't have any diversity in the industry. So, yeah.
I just want to say that Coyote Valley has a barn for the piggies, and the kids go feed their pigs, and
Oh, that's great.
and Round Valley.
Round Valley.
And then what's really cool is when they go to sell them at auction, a lot of tribes go down and buy the animals sometimes, and they're like relatively with a lot of cash to buy food.
Nice. My neighbor raises pigs and my house. So I have a little French bulldog. I have 3 of them, but she kind of looks like a pig. Like she's really similar. And so there's a hole in the fence that goes into the pig pen, and she stands and peers into the pig pen all day long. She can stare at those pigs. Create and maintain a community garden. Great idea. Really important, especially for food sovereignty, to start thinking about. I've seen a lot of really great enterprise projects that deal with, there's a food sovereignty report on the First Nations Development Institute website, and they highlight food programs, tribal food programs throughout the nation. And there's a big movement on aquapod farming and a lot of funding behind that, where kids are doing aquapod farming in places that they can't get fresh vegetables, and then creating their own farmers market. And so the kids are learning the aquapod process and the sales process, permitting, sales, all of those things. And the kids in the community basically run the whole business. And the funding goes back to generate program income for the project. So a lot of really great creative things going on. And then just looking at community garden in terms of local food sovereignty, we live in a place where $100 doesn't go a long way at the farmer's market, especially here in Sonoma County. And even with our Acorn Protein Bar, the amount that we have to charge for the bar, because the percentage goes back to the market, would make it really unreasonable to sell. And so things are high priced at farmers markets because of the way they're structured. I would really like to see a native food hub be created where native food vendors, we got a great warehouse right here, could come and bring their foods and make sales and make traditional foods accessible to the community. So traditional gardens would really go far in learning how to cultivate things. And whenever you talk to botanists and you say, how do we prevent fires? They say, plant more native plants in your yard, right? Don't bring in all these other species. And so we're looking at partnering with local gardens, but also creating more garden opportunities for you. First Nations Development Institute, they have a food sovereignty report, and they highlight a bunch of different programs. First Nations Development Institute. And they worked with the Novo Foundation. The Novo Foundation is owned by Warren Buffett's kids, and they fund a lot of tribal programs, and they funded a lot of the food sovereignty work.
We've got a great botanical garden down at the College of Orange and Auto. At the Cultural Conservancy with Nelson, and another Cuny degree. She's been working on there. Have you signed on there?
I haven't, but they just had an event, and they had it was a native food feast.
Yeah, I've been doing that. It's
Yeah.
really fun. Cool to see some of the really rare beans and squashes that they kept. They seed tested and brought to grow.
Yeah. And it would be great to bring more, something we're trying to do with the store, but there's a lot of native food businesses, so like the Chippewa have the rice that they cultivate using canoes and things that are powered with motors. There's, the Tonka Bar, there's
the Acorn Protein Bar.
It's the Acorn Protein Bar, a little biased towards that one. But there's just so many things out there that we could be eating, but they just have to be more accessible to us. So we have to figure out a way to enhance that. I know that there's a couple communities that have created native food hubs, and I'm really interested in finding a way to support native food vendors because it's really hard to create a business that's sustainable. So I want to want to foster that some more, put some more thought into it. Let's see, youth group admin training for youth council, the tribes with jobs and responsibilities. This is really a key thing, especially to get them exposed to these things before they become voting age. I know that there were a couple of tribes down in Southern California that would require their youth to go through civics training and cultural training before they turn 18. So it was a requirement that before they voted, they had to have done these different classes. And, they were 1-week classes. I know there's some tribes up here that require the financial literacy training. That's really a good thing as well. I think one of the pitfalls I've often seen with per cap communities is that the kids fall victim to high interest loans. And, there was a joke going around Southern California that if they stole a Slurpee in their Mercedes, they would just take it back and get a new one. I don't know. I don't think that's true. It's just a joke. But, that's kind of an example of when you come into money at a young age, it might be going to work more for other people than for you and your future. And so, if kids went to college and lived in the dorm and invested some of the monies that they're getting while they're in college, they have it makes the money work for them in their future at a time when they don't necessarily need to use all of the money. So, and I think it's important too, because I think one of the things we also fight a bit is entitlement mentalities within our communities. And if you think about, I don't know how old guys are, but some people have only been alive knowing gaming has been in the world. I'm much older, so I remember the pre-gaming days. But to think about if you grew up your whole life and it was always there, you're never really going to think about it not being there, right? And we do have to think about it not being there because, we're subject to legislative authority. It could go away. We have to figure out how we're all going to survive if that happens, right? Can't be dependent on them. So I think civics, government education, history, all of those things are really good, and our kids aren't going to get it anywhere else unless we provide it for them. So thinking about what kind of citizens we want them to be, we have to give them tools for that, yeah.
You mentioned a voting age. So what would you say that would be prior to that? What would be still an appropriate, when you're talking about the history-wise, we kind of focus on that for a minute.
Yeah.
What would still be appropriate to bring that without it bringing that trauma? Yes, exactly. But let's put it, and yeah. So what would that look like or without, being too young?
I think high school.
Okay, so they say high school, but then I say maybe even a little younger than that.
It could be.
From experience, right?
You can start introducing topics. I do it when they're in the 4th grade because they're here, and I know all the other I'm not supposed to cuss CRAP that they're getting. So I provide them the right, authentic, honest information. Now I gauge the maturity level of my group. We talk about human trafficking and sexual exploitation, but I don't always use those words. But they're playing Fortnite. I'm pretty sure they can handle it. I don't want to traumatize them. I do leave them with the sense of we're resilient, we're still here, and we're proud of that. But it can happen at a young age. But I think for like a really full, robust discussion and having the attention span, high school age, because that's where they're going to be introducing the ethnic studies curriculum. I think sophomore. So I think that's a good age. I think I was teaching an ethnic studies class that was full of juniors and seniors at Annalee, and they were really engaged, great group of kids. So
I guess maybe when I ask that too, I'm a mother of 2 daughters, so to really get a grasp on all children with that. We would like to really have them, you mentioned civics and cultural trainings already for youth and, just kind of get an idea of what that would look like age-wise.
We start here with some of that around 9, 10. But they're a mixed group, so, but, I think that as soon as they're in kindergarten, they're starting to get the wrong information. So as a mother, I've also kind of gently introduced things. I found my kids are very different in terms of demeanor. The one that was here, she would almost like go on the attack at her teachers if they did something wrong. The other one's more quiet, but I, kind of laughed when she did that. She got a little militant about it, which I thought was funny. I didn't like it. Her teachers didn't appreciate it. Oh well. But again, that also made her a little bit of a target because she stood up for things. And then and we talk about it with our kids too, what we call white fragility. And it's a concept that when, as a minority person, if you're destabilizing that power that people are comfortable with when they have white privilege, they lash back at you. And so, when she's put herself out there, then the white students in the classroom would say, well, we're offended by what you said. And she'd say, well, you don't get to be offended, I'm offended. So she'd have to get in these conversations. But once you can explain to them, like, this is what you can anticipate is going to be the reaction, they can process that. Let's see. So youth councils, I think there's one of the tribes has the legal council, Hopland or Sherwood.
It's Hopland. Well, there's 3 of them. There's 3 tribes that are in their coalition. But Sherwood has a youth council right now, and we're getting Coyote Valley started again. I used to run there. I actually have a toolkit that I developed in the city for youth community advisory boards that I'm adapting for specific to people. It's a little different than doing a community advisory board. So, if anyone wants that resource, I'm going to pass it to me and Ashio at Coyote Valley. I'm going to start adapting.
And we have, I think, we'll go over that to the books after lunch, but we have some things in the binder that help a little bit, like the code of conduct. Is that something you have in there?
They developed their own, the format of that one is that they developed their own group agreement. So the code of conduct isn't there because it's not necessarily in the tribal structure. So this will be part of the council.
Yeah, this one, our group worked on developing, and that was really good because we had more buy-in. We also have other forms in the materials I'm going to give to you, just basic things like photo permissions, things you always want to have, medical releases, things like that you always want to have on file if you're dealing with youth. So I'll have those for you after lunch. All right. Intergenerational, multi-generational sharing and teaching about culture, plants, history. Regularly, consistently, transportation is needed. Really important. We try to do things once or twice a month, and we don't always get to do that. Transportation sometimes can be a challenge because sometimes if we want to go on our outdoor education field trips, they're far away. So it's always planning, and then our botanist that we work with, she has a job in Sacramento, so sometimes we're going around her school. So it's really helpful to try to plan things several months in advance. That way you're on the calendar. But our kids really show up for these things. They're really important to them. And then we also try to incorporate documentation while they're doing it so that they're photographing and recording and building kind of a data set of information that they can share with other people who weren't there. Knowledge of and accountability. about the ocean, the oak trees, the creeks, steward and tend, support the natural resources, medicine as a community, and ability to get there.
That one's fine. I'm not saying we're not doing that. I'm just saying that, like, I feel like there's certain people that I talk to about the tide, for example. Certain people I talk to about it's a good year for acorns or not a good year. Certain people I talk to like said. But I just think it'd be really cool if we all were like, I'll see you at the ocean because you and I both know it's a tide. Yeah, and you run over there and there's like people over there because everyone's being accountable to that time of year.
Not normalizing it.
Yeah, because I think sometimes like responsibility is put on you, or they take on that leadership and then people think they got it, but like the reality is a long time ago, the way in which there's stuff to the beautiful garden was often treated like on an organization or on one person.
Right. That's really important because what we often find is kids say, yeah, that sounds like we want to do it, and then it's 8 a.m. on Saturday, and then we've got few that showed up, you know. And I don't define our success by our numbers because small anyway, but it's hard when everybody seems to be on the same page, and then when it's followed through time, it's like, you know, crickets.
I really respect that, Bonnie, because I think it's coming like in families you'll learn it from your grandma or you learn it from your auntie, and it stays in your family, such as gatherings. They know the spots to go gather, so you don't really share that with anybody outside your family, and then it puts you on the, like, you know, for some who just want to, you know where the gathering spots are within their own people. It's hard sometimes because you got to put yourself out there to be like, okay, I want to learn. I'm here to learn, but nobody wants to teach you because you're not in this. You know, and that's it gets, even for our own people, towards our own people, gets you discouraged because they don't want to teach you this stuff. You know what I mean? But if it's already there, it's the norm, and you know that you're comfortable going with your own people for them to teach you that. Their elders taught them, you know, that it gives you more, I guess I'm explaining granny circles. All that knowledge is there, and they want to share it with you. It's not that they're your granddaughter because that's who would, you know, naturally would have had that kind of now. You know what I mean? And so that's, I think, the struggle too within the people is that we gotta want to show up, right? So one, show up at those places, but also be willing to be like, okay, I'll teach you because you're here and you want to learn. And so I guess, does that make sense? That's why you're being able to be, oh, okay, this is where we're going to be with the edge gathering, or this is where we're going to be, you know, on the coast where seaweed's cool, or, you know, just any of that. It's just, if you weren't, I mean, I was unfortunate, you know, just like, you know, here, or my grandmother, my great-grandmother teaching me, so you got to put yourself out there and be like, hey, I'm here. Or will you teach me?
And I feel like that you feel comfortable enough to tend the land. Also, like, I want to be like comfortable to tend the land, like, oh, there's willow, like, really needs me to, like, take the crap out of it. Take care of it. Yeah, like, you know, and, like, I was looking at some of those Iron Creek 2 days ago, and I was like, gee, where is, like, this place needs to be tended, the blackberries are coming forward, the willows look like trees, like, you know, there's steps coming back, and, like, I just want to make room for all this stuff, but just because it's on Iron Creek, like, I don't want to keep reinforcing the idea that, like, this is our creek. It's like, it should just feel okay.
But, like, you got the community out of your hands, like, because somebody else taught you, and then there's more people who are like, hey, I'm here. You know, I'll show up because you're willing to teach me. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, I think, really ties in with the idea of it being a community.
I love you feel belonging.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, I think it's intergenerational. Being everyone involved. I mean, I take responsibility that I am not in the community as much as I was when my children were growing up. So as much as all the young adults know who I am and I taught them to do stuff, I'm not teaching it now. And so it's a responsibility for everyone, and definitely maybe reaching out to those people.
Moment, sorry, seaweed this year that the rocks in the front were, which, you know, really people don't harvest so that elders don't have to go so far out. But no one had collected it, and it was all overgrown and chewy on it. It's sad about that because there weren't as many people down there anymore as used to, and the spot as sheep went to. So that's something else to think about when we think about that language too, being of the essence, trying to get resources while people are still around to teach us. And we don't want to regret that we didn't take the time. And it's easy for time just to kind of get past us. And then you're like, oh, I wanted that 5 years ago, and here I am. I still haven't done it yet. So it's,
I think about the tribal journey and how it sort of means building. It's like just to have a couple weeks or out of the year, but it kind of sees that revitalization where people are like in a canoe together talking, we're not talking, they're around fires for like, for 2 weeks, and with the words, because I was just yelling with that wrong journey, I feel like, kind of see that engagement and sort of collectivity, that feeling of not being equal, that they were so much a part of responsible to get that boat where it needed to go. It wasn't about, it just taught that lesson about how we're all responsible for keeping things in our community healthy. And so it's so nice when they feel like thinking about what that was like in for me, how do we create things like that helps float that to the rest.
I was just writing down some of the themes that we're seeing. So, consistency being a big one, right? Because we have start and stop programs, and we don't, what's here one day might not be there the next day. And these are lifelong learning things that we have to teach our kids and that we're still engaged in, so we can't make them intermittent, because that's not going to work, right? And having a sense of belonging, stewardship. That was something that when we were focusing on food sovereignty and outdoor education, really got to me, because it's almost like sometimes we feel like we're strangers in our own land. Like if we can't go out and identify things and know what things are positive or poisonous, right? This is our home. This is our territory. This is a basic foundation of knowledge that we should have and our children should have. So, talking circles, belonging, stewardship, identity, cultural learning, intergenerational sharing. I think these are all really common themes that we're seeing. Mentorship, older youth learning, leadership, so that would be like the youth council. Having things fully supported by the tribal council, that's community buy-in, right? That's prioritizing kids coming first. Reunification plans for separated families, fundraisers, youth council. These are the small ones. Sustainable and lots of capacity and resources, deeply community supported. I think that gets back to everyone participating, right? So yeah, we were joking because a lot of the programs we have here, if I call it a language forum, it'll be me and 2 other dedicated people. Like, just, not a lot of people come. But if we have a craft fair, people are beating down our door to come like a month in advance. And so it's like, wow, this community really gets motivated around craft fairs. So, as a result of that, we were having craft fairs all the time. and we're integrating our other programming and education into the craft fair, because that's where people are coming. So sometimes you got a Trojan horse in. Sometimes you might disguise the activity as something everybody gets on board with, and then integrate, some of your other material in there. Wraparound resources, homeless shelter, higher education funding for Native arts, basketry, regalia, beadwork, camp out, sweat lodge.
What is wraparound again?
That's just like treating all the needs. So, you might have tutoring needs, you might have mental health needs, you might just have regular health needs. You might have babysitting needs, right? So, you got to look at what some of the challenges are. There was a study done by the Hayward Burns Institute. They focus on juvenile delinquency, and what they do is they just map hotspots of where kids are committing crimes or getting put back into the system through like recidivism, breaking probation. And once they started mapping where things were going on, they started identifying simple things that were challenges. So in this one area, kids kept breaking probation. What they found out was that the bus didn't go all the way to the probation office. So kids simply didn't have transportation to get there. Wasn't that they were bad, wasn't that they were, engaging in a life of crime. They just couldn't get there to be there on time. So those types of things, thinking about what the challenges are specific to that individual.
You still kind of see that on some of the reservations, and I know this because, like Hopland, for instance, they don't have any transportation that goes all the way out to the reservation.
Yeah.
No MTA, or, it might be like where you battle, the battle ride, right? Taxi. But the MTA doesn't go all the way out there, and it used to. So a lot of the truancy going on, with the youth that live on the reservation, was because they couldn't get to schools. So there were schools such as the community schools that were like the continuation schools would have the transportation to come pick up the youth and take them to school, so that they weren't truant thereafter. And a lot of the ones that are in continuation were already on probation. So if they were truant, that means they violate their probation. So then they're, they can't move on to South Valley, and they can't move on towards the high school. And because there's no, and then the probability of their parents having a car or auntie being able to take you, she's probably the one that's working right now at, the tribal office or something. You can't. It's just kind of one way in, one way out, literally from the red. And so it just kind of hinders them from, or even just getting tied to or getting to community college there. Up there you need everything. Because the college is all the way out, where it's at, and it really is an issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so things like that we can focus on rather than bringing all these specialized experts in to figure out what's mentally wrong with us, right?
No, but I do see now, like, they even have their own, they'll have their bus, like the tribe has their bus now that takes out the kids, and I know this because my daughter's in kinder, and she has a little friend who lives on the residence. They take her to school. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the tribe.
Oh, the tribe has
one.
Yeah, so they're filling in.
So now, but this is like since then. Prior to that, that's what's gotten better. Is that they have that.
Yeah. We also have substance abuse program, cultural leadership, youth advocacy, educational social services, foster homes, intergeneration historical trauma counselors. So it's really, looking at what those specific needs are and drilling down and serving them. So these are all our ideal situations, and we have a lot fewer over here on the real side, right? So what's our reality? What are some of the things that we have available? We have health clinics, we have limited mentoring, and focus on future accomplishments and youth peer support. We have some cultural activity and language classes, We have after-school tutoring. We have building a village on a trail walk. Collaboration between recreation and education departments to make sure kids are given opportunities to participate. Student interest and community support. Administrative enthusiasm. Small and private philanthropic support.
What's that one called?
Just like foundations, money giving. Native American Youth Adult Partnership Programs, Redwood Community Services, education centers running programs mostly to youth who live on the Reds, and Native Youth Career Programming through tutoring and summer programs. So it kind of feels like we have a start, right? But we kind of are just on the tip of the iceberg.
I didn't get mine up there, but there's also on like Red Road in my community. I know I heard Martin Martinez mention he runs Red Road everywhere from prisons in the community and in the tribe. I've actually, when I interned at the Arbor Youth Resource Center, it's called in Ukiah. It's for all youth. It's a resource center for them to go and get skills, anywhere from career skills to, using computers, a place to be, because a lot of them are homeless. They have programs such as WIOA that helps with career planning and all that. But Red Road is also something that he has dropped there. So kids will come to those places.
And it's regular.
Yeah, and Red Road's open to everybody. To kind of shift the size that it's open to the community. Anybody who wants to be there or show up, And then
All races.
yeah, so stress that too.
People have to understand their culture too.
Sure. Yeah, if they understand theirs, they're not so quick to try to take ours.
Yeah, because a lot of wet lodges too, anywhere from 4th Street programs to, if you go out to Redwood Valley, and then there's also I had a video, but I mentioned that. That's like within the Arbor Youth Resource Center, which is a center that's collaborated with Redwood Community Services. It's a program within their program. And then another partnership that they have with them is Panolaville now they're like in partnership with the Arbor Resource Center, so they have a lot of programs within the Arbor program now. And I don't know who was in charge of it, or who's in charge of it now, but prior was Brittany Lucas, was her name. She was in charge of the native, they're like, they speak for the natives that are in juvenile hall, that are having their juvenile cases. They're the ones who go in front of the judge and they'll speak to them themselves. So it's
like an advocate?
Yeah, but it's the native youth, they run it, or the youth, they run it, sorry, and the native youth, they're starting one for the natives specifically. I don't want to say.
Restorative justice?
Yeah, I don't want to go, but I know that it's something that they're implementing. It's something that the Arbor already has in place for their youth, and then the natives are coming and they're starting their own for their own youth.
Nice.
Also. So if I can find more information on that, but it's through the Arbor.
Well, that's good. They're already building on kind of the structure they have existing and enhancing it and bringing more native-specific programming.
So I coordinate the mentor program that they have right now, but that's not the advocate program.
You know which one I'm talking about, though, that how they have that?
It's probably part of that big grant they have, right?
Does Brittany Lucas still work there?
Oh. This program, this program has like the mentor program has like 3 coordinators. I'm standing in. But Northern Tribe has a huge grant, and they have a lot of career success stuff. But 2 pillars of it are educating teachers and doing advocacy in schools, trying to educate people who can go in and educate.
That's good.
And then the other, the tutoring center that they just opened, and they have a but they're strategically trying to run it not for Northern because they want it to be for everyone. So they partner with RCS for like cross-pollination. So
Nice.
Yeah, it's trying really hard.
So when we kind of look at where we've got to start on some of these big picture ideas, what do you think the challenges are? Maybe it seems one of the things that I could look at is a lot of our programming that we have existing is maybe remedial after the fact, trying to fix things. So sometimes that's a problem, right? If we're not focusing on preventing it on the front end too, because we have to have, both things working at the same time. Not to say that it's not good, we need it, but we also have to think about how we stop it from happening in the first place. Yeah.
I think it was like, there's, I'm going to say, not to the root of like prejudice and like racism. That's multicultural, right? I got cultures in me, or in my family, Filipino, Native, Hispanic, and Irish. And a lot of times, like, I'm part of the movie cult thing, the roundhouse and stuff, and we did have a shake head or a bird dancing group. But there was a certain person, and so anyway, a lot of that, like in like tribal health, when things are happening, it's this person, they got it comes from them, like language, they know the language, it's them, it's their family, it's this. I'm going to teach you, and it's mine. It's not yours. Not so much that you're not full-blooded Indian or whatever, but you can't relate to what I'm going through. And it's like, all right, so here's a job, here's this, that, do it. So where were you at? You show, well, I got this problem. Oh, you okay. Then they start, okay. Is that still going on? Is that what happens? I don't know. It could come from both sides. You know what I mean? Like, because we're teaching education, right? We're teaching adaptation, we're talking perseverance, we do this, we do that. Some people don't want no part of it. I mean, they'll tell you right now, like, why are people trying to teach us how to colonize ourselves? We don't want it. Well, would you guys just want it? What do you do with the check? You buy a new car, you buy a new phone, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Sometimes I don't understand. So, like I said, the prejudice part of it, I don't understand what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And in school they're talking about, I took this name class, it's talk about the generational or these other, there's another word I think about it. But there was some type of not trauma. Something that's inside embedded in our very soul. So if you don't want to do nothing about it, I mean, if you can't talk, if you don't, I don't know, it's really like
Complicated.
Yeah, it's really complicated. I think that in the bigger places, that's still locked there. You say hi to somebody, you really don't even like them. I mean, you really don't like them. You know what I mean? Or vice versa,
We all got our own baggage.
I think there's still a lot of prejudice towards. Well, my tribe, we do by ancestral heritage. Like they have a certain year that they came in and they stabilized who lived on this thing. And the whole Constitution says that it's going to go from that day on, that it's going to go for family lineage. A lot of even now, last week, like, oh, we're going blood quantum. Our kids are starving. Why are all these other kids getting money? They don't, they're not even Indian. We don't know how,
I found out a week ago, and it was through a colleague of mine, that there was a professor writing a book about my grandmother. And I don't know, the professor, never met, and I started asking the rest of my family members, do you know this person? Did they ever reach out to you? Have they talked to you? And I started getting angry about it. I was like, well, who is this person? She doesn't even, she hasn't talked to the family. What perspective is she going to have? What's she motivated by? And I looked up, and I saw her webpage, and, first thing on there was Julie Hardwick, and I was like, this is strange. And then I started thinking about my grandma. My grandma always wanted to start her own tribe. She was going around meetings, come on, kids, we're starting our own tribe. We're done with this. She was very passionate.
Well, you could actually do that.
Yeah, I think it's been done. I don't know if we all turned on each other once we did it.
If you didn't actually, I respect, if you didn't actually live on the res, you wouldn't even consider it Indian. We had no rights as an Indian. You were called a savage.
Well, that's one thing I think about, like, if we think about our history and the value judgments we put on, like, oh, to say you're not from here, well, Nollville wasn't here, one time. Like, everyone was on the run. That's why we're related to other tribes more than people within our tribe. But so, like, we really have to understand that context to try to combat some of the things we say to each other. But I was thinking about that book, and then I started thinking, my grandma was alive. She would be so upset that this lady was writing a book and making money off of her name. That was her name. That belonged to her. And then I started thinking about, and then she'd be really mad at me and my dad and my sister because we didn't like the book. Like, how could we let this other lady write it? And so I was like, on my dad, I'm like, we better get started on this book because, she'd be really upset. If that lady's book comes out first before our book, like, I don't know, like, what she's going to do from the other side, she's going to be mad at us. So it started to get complicated, but I think that we're all in protection mode. We want to protect things that so much was lost and so much was taken, and we feel like this is ours to protect, and how could you come along and try to tell that story? She could tell the story. Pretty sure my version of it is going to be pretty good because it has a little bit more insight. Or she could interview me, and I'd be fine with that too. But, our immediate response is, this is mine, and I'm going to build this boundary around it, and you can't take it from me anymore. And so we're still operating on that. But culture is not static. It's not frozen in time. And the kids are going to change things. They're going to move it forward, and it's going to be different. And it might all be on the internet. We don't know. We want them to think critically about how they approach it, but we don't have control of the direction it's going. And so, we have a lot of people who say you can't do this and you can't do that. But one day those people aren't going to be here anymore. And so we have to think about how we're preparing them to do as best they can with it, but we can't control what they do with it and the direction it goes and how it's fine. And so I think sometimes we get stuck in our rut. And I'm used to getting criticized. I always say, if people aren't talking bad about me, I must not be doing anything. Doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it's good or bad, people are going to criticize me. I just got to have that tough skin. But I do think the more criticism I get, the more good things I'm doing. People are taking notice. But we have to kind of relinquish. We don't have that control.
Someone told me it could be like almost the Russian mafia when they're going through. You got to get approval for everything.
Yeah.
Through certain families, and if it changes, it changes.
Think they're going to
Until your family feels big enough, and then they're taking, if you don't like it, the pity.
That's what's certain.
And go to war. Right? These names always fought names anyways, in history. Before the Europeans, it was Spanish, and before the Spanish, the Russians. And before the Russians, it was, we were fighting each other.
Yeah, we definitely.
Trading.
They don't all get along. So.
Trading the third party, the third China.
All right, we are going to break for lunch, so maybe take an hour and 15 minutes. So you want to come back at 1:30? That works. There's a couple places across the freeway over there. There's sandwich place and by the movie theater, pretty close, just across the freeway. And then there's a deli that way on the corner. Down over the highway, there's more options. Bullsbury Market. If you guys need directions, just let Laura know.
What do you guys want to do?
Just take a nap on the thing.
What?
And I was like, wait, I don't want to leave the music in.
I've been doing that last 2 weeks, just dropping my body, because I've commute to school out of town, and I have to work at Cape Town, like 4 hours later, I go to the park and sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope no one taps on your window.
Yeah. Yeah, twice in the car and twice it's still blanket out there.
I came out from
My little
Mendocino.
alarm clock on.
I came through Anderson Valley from Mendocino this morning, all thundering and raining. On my way to Boonville, yeah.
I know it's rain too.
Okay. Pretty cool.
Yeah, you smell it. I could smell it before. I'm like, it's really like,
Yeah.
is that road red? But there was construction, so I thought maybe water.
I rolled down the window.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I was great.
There's like a couple like like clear up on big picture learning. It's just a bunch of tiny, we're like really small schools, and the students, they're public, and they're like alternative for a long time, and they twice a week the students can do an internship, whatever they're interested in. So no public, it's all public. It's like alternative, you know. So
You're locally?
there's one here in Windsor. I think you kind of want to open one.
You like the youth board?
And so,
Youth authority or youth?
No, it's part of like we're like a national network of schools. It's through all like UTI Unified School District alternative in it. I talked to the new director and they were like, yeah, we want to start a big picture school. So a school like ours where it's like 125 kids. They have the same, there's like 17 kids in class, and they're in the same class for 4 years, so they know each other. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're gone all day. Like, if a kid wants to learn welding, if a kid wants to learn library science, if a kid wants to learn.
Also, you're a private school.
They are, it's public. Yeah. Mostly it's public or alternative. So we get away with, you know what I mean? We get away with bigger high schools, they have different kind of rules, and we have a little more flexibility. And so what we realized is that a lot of these students were doing well. And so with an elder and learn what they want to learn or something with their child. We have like a school with on-domination. So we are just trying to support our students to do their jobs all across the country. It's just, it's done. But you kind of, if you kind of,
yeah,
I live in Ukiah.
You probably want to talk to me. So she works with
I live in Ukiah, but I'm not like.
Yeah, I didn't really know what it meant before the I'm still getting my education, but
The right
exactly, and I'm really, I was maybe I'm not going to really help what she does, my harassment. It really is my opinion, but that's where I've been trying to kind of
no, this is hands-on.
Just half.
Hands-on stuff.
I'm really gonna try to catch that. Yeah. Like, right now, I feel like I'm away from it. Yeah.
Well, that's something I heard.
All the keys right there.
Yeah. Really, we're talking about right now, we're working on it. Yeah. Yeah, you know, yeah. I'll get with me too. Fine, at some point, and then we just say, where are we? Yeah. Probably will probably be through the alternative program, and we have an internship for the whole of the rest of the week, like 2 days a week. It's our, we have an internship, whatever, yeah. We've met West and Oakland, actually. I don't know if you know that. But it sounds like you have, like, what the school district really wants is to have more robust. Yeah. Yeah. Means also just like having an opportunity to students.
Yeah, I think that's something to South Valley High is trying to do too.
That's, I think that's.
Next year or not that soon?
Yeah.
So I was talking, so I'm pretty close to the principal because he's a worker.
Yeah,
I used to be a youth worker and he was a teacher and we were like, that's amazing, I'm getting them. It's very true. And, you know,
yeah.
So, but I haven't had a lot of time to ask him, what's your structural support for internships?
I'm just doing license for big picture, so I would love to answer that question
Yeah.
for you. We should have gone like first.
So yeah, so who, do you want my phone number?
Yeah.
772-272-2265.
Hold on. 707. What was it?
272-2265.
265.
And like, I'm happy to help you connect with Nicole. Funding really, I mean, it's like program,
Right.
and then, I've been thinking about it. Where are these kids gonna be placed? Because there's plenty of people that need help, but maybe they don't know how to work with youth, so they probably need a little bit of PA around.
Sorry, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna do Chris, and I wanna call you.
Okay, sounds great.
Okay.
Chris knows my name.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, it rained.
Huh?
But it rained.
Yeah, I drove down from Mendocino this morning, the town of Mendocino, and Anderson Valley at like 7 this morning was dumping. You know, just a little, you'd be steady for a minute and then it would clear and then it would rain and there was thunder. It smells so good. You roll down the windows. But then it was gone.
Was it nice out of the coast?
Yeah, it was foggy. And then, but the rain was great. It was great. It was like, it was rain for a while.
I live in Cloverville, though.
Oh.
I live like right.
Yeah.
I have wanted to go up there and then that ain't living.
Maybe a little busy.
Yeah.
I was like, when do you do all this stuff?
Well, you know, my brother that worked at the pool, he passed away.
Oh, Nikki, I'm really sorry. He even mentioned that he was sick.
Yeah, we thought he was doing better. The bone marrow transplant, his body started fighting it. It didn't work. They were going to put him, his option was to go into incubation where they were going to put him in a coma.
Wow, younger or older?
He's older. Yeah.
Unimaginable unless you have done it for yourself.
Then my dad, right, and it's like, they brought my brother home from hospice, and my dad looked at the physician. My dad had a heart attack. And he had 3 stents put in, and he's okay now. But so it's like really, like the past month. Yeah.
Well, Mendocino was a good place to go.
Yeah. I've been thinking that because I've been like, I need to go up there.
Mm-hmm. My mom was up there, and she had those 40 years. She had a little cabin that someone moved out of, and so she needed help, so I went up there. It was actually great. It was very therapeutic, like just ripping stuff out and carpeting and all that. But then Christine sent me an email and was like, oh, there's room. And I was like, okay, I have sweat. Show up in sweat.
Casual.
Yeah, so I was really grateful that not everyone was like, but it was, yeah, it was really nice up there. Really nice. Yeah. I'm just gonna do some work and then I'll be here.
All right. I'm trying to get you guys with my angle training.
This conference will now be disconnected. Goodbye.